Hope is here. The way to break free with your host, Angela Pedigo, will light a flame within you. Host Angela Pedigo is an author, speaker, and certified life recovery, grief, and joy restoration coach. Angela uses her own life experiences to help you navigate and guide you to success. She also has developed tools that incorporate her faith and her drive to overcome any obstacle in life. So please welcome the host of The Way to Break Free, Angela Pedigo.
Welcome, everybody, to The Way to Break Free. I'm your host, Angie Pedigo. I hope you all had a very happy Thanksgiving. I don't know about you, but I ate entirely too much, but it was a good time. So welcome to the show. Welcome back since the holidays. Alicia Beasley is my guest today. And guys, she has a powerful testimony, let me tell you. Alicia and I have known each other for several years. It's amazing how you can know somebody and not know the places they've been, the things they've experienced. And I just recently got to hear that a couple of months ago at church. And so, yeah, I had to bring her on because this is something for the world. So hope you guys are tuned in, buckled up, and we're going to dive in. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to come on and share. Like I said, you do have a powerful testimony. But before we jump into that, just tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am married to my not high school sweetheart, but middle school sweetheart.
Middle school sweetheart.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, we started dating when I was in 8th grade, and
wow.
Dated for 4.5 years, got married, and now we're 22 years.
22 years. Yes. Middle school sweethearts.
Yes.
There are not many people that can say that they're still married to their middle school sweetheart. Love that. Yeah, you need to write a book about what the secrets are.
God in the middle, and choosing to stay on both sides.
Love is a choice.
It definitely is. We have 3 wonderful children. Not really children anymore. One who is 20 and who will be getting married in June.
Oh, nice.
So getting a daughter, and it's exciting. I can't wait.
Yay.
Couldn't choose a better one.
Aw.
Love her to death. Her family's become our family. I always prayed, God, I don't want to lose a child. I want to gain more. And so I didn't have a lot of family. And so this gave me family. And God, of course, when you pray, God gives what you.
That's a good prayer.
Yeah. That's always been my prayer. Just don't let me lose. Let me gain more. And also prayed, let them find someone who loves you more than they love my children.
Yes.
And vice versa. If my kids love God more than they love their spouse.
I had someone tell me one time that I was working with, how they always thought they needed to be first in somebody's life and they were in a relationship with. But he said, once I figured out that if they have God first in their life, that means I'm second. And if they're doing right by God, they'll do right by me. Yep. And he said, second never felt so good.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. That's awesome. Yes. Well, thank you again for your willingness to come on, because I know sometimes these things can be kind of hard to share, and so your testimony just moved me so much when I got to hear it at the God Encounter, and I was like, man, I work with a lot of people who have been in these broken places, that you have experienced, and just the way God's hand has worked in all of it, it's just miraculous. There's no other way you can describe that. So I'm just going to let you just kind of dive in, take us back. Tell us about growing up.
You're right. God's hand has been all in it. If it wasn't, it's when you look back, you see God's hand everywhere. I guess I'll start at the very beginning because that's where it starts. When my mother became pregnant with me, my father didn't want me. He didn't want a child. She actually tricked him into getting pregnant. And so he decided to take care of that problem by beating her into the stomach until she bled, thinking he had got rid of me. But God had other plans, obviously, because I'm here. He had other plans. And so that didn't work.
Protecting you from the womb.
From protecting me from the very beginning, he had huge plans for me, and still, just doing what he leads. Then, I mean, just everywhere we turned, my dad tried to, get me out of the way because I was in his way. Him and my mother and him split up very soon after I was born. He actually traded me for a car.
Wow.
He kidnapped me from a hospital and traded me from a car. Back to my mom.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Kidnapped you from the hospital?
It's from my mother was a nurse, and I stayed in the nursery at the hospital. And so he went and wasn't supposed to take me out, but he did. And then he traded me back to my mom for the keys to the car.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you?
At that time, I probably wasn't 6 months old, I guess.
Oh,
somewhere
so
in
you
that
had
area.
no clue.
Yeah. I happened to 18 months old. My mother passed away. So then I was just left with, the dad that didn't want me. Gratefully, I did have the woman who ran the nursery at the hospital, and her family took me in and took care of me while, my dad was running around, do whatever he wanted to do, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Did you live with them?
I lived with them for a little while
mm-hmm.
until one night he came and got me from their house
mm-hmm.
and brought me to Tennessee. But we were in Florida at the time.
Okay.
That's where I was born. So when we headed to Tennessee, I think his mind was, that's where his mom and dad lived.
Mm-hmm.
And he had family up here. And I think he was thinking I could pawn her off of my parents and then they could take care of her and I'll go do what I want to do and be free. But at the same time, I can get the money from her,
mm-hmm.
from Social Security work. A parent just passed away, you get money, a check. And he could get that kind of stuff. But he learned quickly that people had sympathy for a single dad of a baby.
Mm.
So he could use that for his benefit to get things he wanted from people, whatever that happened to be. And yet was still getting the check. And yes, we went to his parents and lived with his parents. He would take me out when he wanted to take me. He would take me to his parties and his places. To this day, I still remember going into one of his parties. There was a coffee table in the middle of the room. What now I know now was a bong.
Oh.
I thought it was a pretty little.
Yeah.
I don't know what at the time.
What's that?
Yeah, I now know that it was a bong. He would put beer and alcohol into our sippy cups or our cups or whatever, and the kids, or several kids, not just me, out of these parties, and then we would be the entertainment for the party for the men at the party. His mom knew that we were doing things that wasn't safe, so she told him, said, I'm going to take out an insurance policy on her because you need to stop taking her, you're going to get her killed. And he, to this day, I think insurance kind of rang a bell in his head, money there. So he took me. I can't remember. People say you can't remember memories when you're like 3 or 4 year old, but certain ones do stand out. Some traumatic stuff does.
Yes,
it does.
Yes.
But we pulled up to a house. I just remember it looking like a house in the projects, like a project-looking home. I don't know where it was. And he told me, he said, Alicia, whatever you do, don't get out of this car.
Now, how old were you?
At this time, I was somewhere between 3 and 4, because like I said, I can remember, but I don't, I just remember him telling me not to get out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in a yellow Volkswagen Beetle. I can still remember the smell of the vinyl black seats, in the car. But, I didn't listen like most kids.
Right.
I didn't listen. As soon as he went in the house, I got out. By the time I got to the door, gunshots rang out behind me. And my dad comes running out of the house. And when he opens the door, instead of, being that, oh my goodness, are you okay? He was furious because I didn't listen to him. And so he decided to beat me for not listening and getting out of the car. We go back to the car and there was bullet holes through the car right where I had been sitting. So,
girl, I
still think he, insurance money, trying to get rid of me, trying to take care of it. But God, once again, had other plans.
Did somebody have to share that with you, or do
Yes.
you still like
I remember
vividly?
I remember it, but I also growing up seeing the bullet hole in the door, and was like, "What happened?" And and my dad would always just say, "Oh, it just the car got shot." He never would.
Yeah.
But I remember the gunshot. I remember the leather, the seats, the car, the White House that was in front of us.
Wow.
God had other plans.
Yes.
As he always does. He has plans and he has ways. And we just have to trust him in them.
Two times. By the age of 4.
That I can remember.
Yes.
Who knows what happened in between. I don't know. So then after I guess that plan failed, he decided that I would just take the place of my mother. And he would, abuse me. And I would remember him telling me times like, you look so much like your mom. You look so much like your mom. I was a kid. I didn't look like a woman in any way. I was a kid. So my mom's parents also lived in this area. And I would go visit them from time to time. And I love to talk as much as I do now. Because as a kid, I had no filter and no knowing what to say and what not to say.
Yes.
So I went to go visit my mom's parents, and I guess I told them what was going on and what everything had happened. And of course, first thing they do, what they should do, went straight to DHS to get me out of there. That was a long, drawn out battle that they had to go through.
What was that like for you, going through that process?
Well, at the time, all I really understood of it was that this woman was coming to interview me, and she would come and talk to me and ask me questions while I colored or I played with dolls or whatever. And she would come see me at the school that I was at. I was at like a preschool. She'd come see me there. But one night, she did come to see me at my dad's house, which I also lived with my grandparents. And my dad even said the last thing he said to me before she walked in was, "Don't tell her where I've been touching you."
Mm-hmm.
And he walked back out of the room because she was coming in. Once again, I like to talk.
Thank God for the gift of gab.
Yeah. So I told her everything, and she walked out of the room that night and went into the living room where my grandparents, my dad were, and she told them what I just told her, everything, and then said, "But I can't take her with me." But she told my dad he had to leave the house. He couldn't stay in the house that night, which he had a little camper outside the trailer. He said he would stay there. But I knew that was probably not going to be the case because no one was going to be there to make him. I was terrified. That was the scariest moment I think I had, of just.
Wow. So here's a man who's potentially tried to take you out twice. Mm-hmm. And now there's an open confession, and they've exposed that to him and left you within arm's reach. Mm-hmm. How old were you?
I was 5.
Wow.
I was in kindergarten.
Now, did your grandparents have any I guess were they a buffer between you and him at all? Or they may not, could have,
I want to say they were, because they were there. And I loved my grandmother. I loved her so much. But she was very naive when it came to her son.
Mm.
Or very, I don't know whether you say naive or just say love is blind or love is unconditional with your children. I don't know. She would always take his side with things and try to say it wasn't true. Mm-hmm. They would say that my mom's parents put it in my head that it never really happened. They always played, my mom's parents, my dad's parents always played against each other with things. And growing up, of course, not knowing what's true sometimes and what wasn't. And but they would always
make you feel torn.
Yes, very, all the time. Yes, and I was a people pleaser even then. For one thing, if I didn't make him mad, he wouldn't beat me. But if I got, if I made him mad, that's when he would beat me. So I just had to please him, just keep him pleased. And also his dad, who was not always the pleasant person either. Even though he wasn't near as bad. He wasn't. He was kind of hateful and would verbally say words that just hurt. But if I could just keep everybody happy, then everything was good. And then at my mom's parents, it was just not wanting to make everybody sad because they were still dealing with grief, with their daughter.
Cool. Yeah.
So
we're gonna pause right here, Alicia, for just a second. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Alicia, before the break, we were talking about your grandparents and, kind of playing against each other a little bit, but that you went into this people-pleasing mode and, trying to make sure everybody stayed happy. And the one thing that stands out to me is even at such a young age, that you could recognize the grief that your grandparents were still feeling over the loss of your mom, their daughter. Like to the point that maybe you didn't understand it as a child. I don't know,
Right.
but knowing that there was something, or feeling, I guess, the need that there was something that you were needing to protect them from, I don't know, like, was that hard for you?
I don't know that I recognized what I was doing
Mm-hmm.
when I was doing it, or what they were. I think it was just a natural response
Mm-hmm.
for me. Like I said, I was only with them, at the beginning, when at that age,
Mm-hmm.
On weekends,
Mm-hmm.
or every other weekend, while they were going through, and the whole horrible custody battle.
Mm-hmm.
That to this day I'm very thankful they fought for, because I know it had to cost them a lot of money. It had to cost them a lot of, time, and a lot of, heartache to be grieving and then go through all of this court hearings and all of this stuff.
So from the time that DCS worker showed up at the house that night till the time it was all said and done, how long did that process take?
I was 6 when I moved into my grandparents. I changed schools. I was still in elementary school. I changed schools from Westmoreland to a Gallatin private school.
Mm-hmm.
When I actually moved in with them. So I'm not really sure. Sometime within that year. Come to find out, I actually had several people who were willing to fight for me, which was really nice. The woman in Florida that I had lived with for a little while, was willing to come up and take me. I had some aunts and uncles. But it came down to the two sets of grandparents because my dad also was in and out of prisons at this time and jails and stuff, and he wasn't a fit. They had proven he was fit. So it was between two grandparents. And it ended up being a primary custody to my mom's parents with visitations every other weekend to my dad's parents. Is what we ended up being. So I would still go to my dad's parents every other weekend to be with them and split holidays and stuff.
Was he allowed to be there?
And he was there. He was there when he wasn't in prison. He was there.
Yeah.
And there I was pretty much felt like I was there, like I would clean their house. And they were very meticulous on how they wanted things done. And they were very opposite. They were also Northerners, where my mom's parents were Southerners. So they were Catholic. My dad's parents were Catholic. My mom's parents were Southern Baptist. You couldn't get any opposite.
You are divided in every direction.
Yes. So to say the blessing for dinner was the prayer that Catholics use, and then at my mom's parents, it was just the blessing, and one was very proper, one was not. One was setting the table with the glass plates and the silverware correctly, and at my mom's parents, it was throw the styrofoam plates on the plate and throw a fork out there. One was you fold the towels in third ways, and when you throw them in fourths, and just trying to keep up with where I was at, in which place, and which way people wanted what.
Yes.
And it didn't. My mom's parents weren't as like, if I'd done it the wrong way, the other way, it wasn't a big deal. But my dad's parents, if I did it the wrong way, things like my grandfather would, like, the towels had to be folded exactly perfect, and the seams had to be exactly lined up perfect. And if they weren't exactly perfect, he would just knock them all on the floor and say, start again.
Wow.
And just remembering as a kid, try to remember, where am I? What do they want done? How do they want this done? Like they would, my dad's dad would give me a pair, it looked like scissors, to go around on my hands and knees around the porch and trim the grass. To just pretty much probably busy work to keep me busy, because I was, by myself there, and they were older. Me and my grandmother played a lot of cards and spent a lot of time at the kitchen table. We would play cards, and she taught me how to play rummy and all these different games. And she gave me the love of crafts. Me and her would do crafts together and make things together. And to this day, I love to do crafts. Me and her were very close.
Good.
Very close. She was my, just leave him alone and let him watch his golf. Yeah. That, if you walked in the living room and said anything during the golf game, like, you're going to mess up their tee. Like, I don't know how they can hear me, but okay.
I grew up with a golfer, so I totally get that.
I don't think they can hear me, Grandpa, but okay.
Golf is important.
Yeah. But yeah, I was always just in between the two. But I was my mom's parents I was very blessed to have them. They took me to church every time the doors opened. Literally every time the doors opened, whether it was a Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, prayer meeting on side, whatever it was, we went.
Yes.
I was expected to be there, and there was no other option whether to be there or not. And it wasn't like I tried not to be there most of the time. But growing up, of course, you become teenagers, you do things.
Yes.
But at the age of 9, they were singing "There's Room at the Cross for You" when I felt that tug from God. Oh. And I gave my heart to Christ, walking down this little aisle while they were singing "There's Room at the Cross for You." And I remember getting home that afternoon, the enemy messed with my head, was telling me, you didn't do it. It didn't take. You didn't do it right, or whatever, it made me doubt my salvation. And so I went into the living room and I told my grandparents that what I was feeling, and we all got on our hands and knees in the living room, on our knees, and we prayed, and we did it again.
Yes.
So I do owe them, so much, like I said, from stepping in to be a parent when they were grieving the daughter.
Yeah.
When they're like at an age, that they think that was the last thing they were expected to have to do. But they were grieving their child, and they did the best they could raising me. Like I said, I love them and couldn't do anything for them. And I look back now, I mean, I'm not saying they did anything wrong, because they didn't. They didn't know, I don't think, that I needed help. That I needed more than the preacher to talk to every once in a while.
Well, I want to say too, back then too, I think it was more acceptable to talk to the preacher than it was to get trauma help. You know what I'm saying?
Probably,
Yeah.
yes.
Because mental
Yes.
health and stuff like that was,
Wasn't-
trauma. Everything was sweeping under the rug, hide it.
Yes.
Not talk about it, not get the help that you need. Just like bury your head in the sand, and it'll go away.
And that was exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was, we don't talk about it. We don't bring it up. I'm not going to say I wasn't allowed to bring it up, because, like I said, I seen that anytime I brought my mom up, I seen the sadness or the reaction, and I didn't want that. So I just wouldn't. I wouldn't bring up my mom. My mom was never really mentioned growing up. And I just like it, I always pretend like she didn't exist, other than the pictures on the wall. So that made it hard to not understand, not be able to talk about it. And I said, not that I couldn't. I just felt like I couldn't. I don't know if they were alive today, they'd probably like, you can talk about it anytime, but I didn't feel like I could. So that was, that made it difficult. And then my dad, of course, his family was everything that was wrong was her fault or her parents' fault to them. Blame everything on her while she wasn't here to defend herself. So,
Yeah.
I mean, literally till I turned 16, I thought my middle name was Christina, because my dad always called me. Said my middle name was Christina. I get my birth certificate, and my middle name was Christine.
Wow.
And he said, when I asked him about it, he said it's because he wanted to name me Christina. And so since she wasn't around, he could call me what he wanted. so I'm like, well, to this day, even now, because I lived that way for 16 years, sometimes I'm like, what's your full name? I start to say Christine. That's Christine.
Wow.
Just little things like that.
Okay. This might be a silly question, but not silly question. Did that mess with you identity-wise? Even a little? I mean, I know it's not that much different, but did it make you think, what else do I don't know?
Yeah, sometimes. Yes, sometimes. Yeah. Of course, also, I think when you're so young and you deal with death, you don't have closure, because you don't remember anything.
Yes.
And you have imaginations as young people. As kids, we have more imagination. I remember I would be mowing the yard at my mom's parents' house where I grew up. And I would just start daydreaming that maybe my mom really hadn't died. Maybe she was alive, and that she would pull up the driveway and be like, I just had to do that. I had to pretend, like, fake my death. Of course, again, also TV shows.
Yes.
I had to just fake my death to get safe from him. But I'm back now, and I'm here for you. And I would like catch myself looking down the driveway, like knowing, but I knew in my head, I knew she was dead. I'd been to her grave. I mean, I knew that, but I could like pretend that maybe she wasn't. She would come back.
Do you think that was just some way of trying to find hope in what
I don't know.
Felt like
maybe
a hopeless situation?
Maybe.
Wow.
And I don't think I've ever shared that thing, right? It's kind of crazy.
Wow.
But yeah.
It's so childlike, pure innocence. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what the heart of a child would do.
Right.
Your imagination, your mind, a lot of times would do that. Wow.
Yeah.
So you are living with grandparents, and what was that like for you? Like, as far as, okay, so I know you met your husband in middle school. What were the teenage years like?
Well, because of probably, I'm not sure how my grandparents raised my mom, exactly, but because of having one who did pass away, I think they maybe were a little bit more stricter. Which, I mean, now look back at it now, I'm thankful that they were. But also they were older and didn't have the energy that a parent would have, which understandably. So I wasn't involved in school activities much. I didn't like do the dance or the cheerleading or the sports of any kind or the, it was just go to school, come home. They were both working in elementary school. Like I would just come home, be by myself and eat whatever's in the house. Set up poor eating habits from the beginning. Once again, not their fault. That was just the way things were. But my friends would be going out and doing things, and I wasn't, which I didn't really look at it that way at that time. I didn't really realize I wasn't really whatever. I'd go to friends' houses and spend the night, or I had a few that would spend the night, come to us, and that was okay. But father-daughter dances, didn't have the father to go dance with me. I had a grandfather who raised me like a father. He was the only father I knew, but he didn't believe in dancing because there was not going to be no father-daughter dances.
I can see that now. We're going to pause right there real quick. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
We are back from the break, and we were exploring teenage years.
Lovely teenage years.
So not a lot of involvement in school activities. Now you said that's when you met your future husband, right?
I did. I was in choir. That was my school activity that I had, was choir. I was in from time sixth grade through high school, graduating. I loved to sing. My mom loved to sing. My mom had a beautiful singing voice.
Oh.
And that was the only thing I had of my mom, was a cassette tape of her singing the ropes. So that was the only thing I had of her voice.
Yes.
So I would always listen to it and sing it over and over. Probably killed my grandparents' hearing. They were like, "Oh shit, don't turn it off." I probably did. Yeah.
Wow.
But
do you still have that?
I do. I have actually got it on CD now.
Oh wow.
And now I need to figure out how to get it onto because CDs are now non-existent too. So I really need to get that off a CD and onto some kind of, I don't know how to do that, but
laptop.
Sometimes. And that I have her ring, her graduation ring that was given to me, and I wear it from her her birth to the date of her death every year. Those are a few months. So I was at choir, and we were in middle school. Actually, my best friend, sorry if you're watching this, at the time, was dating my husband. My now husband. And I actually had a boyfriend at the time too. Middle school. Have these
Oh,
little,
yes.
these little
You have this
boyfriends and girlfriends. So it's not really even
Mhm,
dating anybody yet.
Last a week and
Right,
then it's over.
exactly. But he had come in. They were having a talent show or some kind of music show. I guess it was a talent show. And I was getting ready to sing. And I was sitting in the auditorium at the middle school. And him and his friend walked in, and he asked his friend asked him, "Where do you want to sit?" And he said, "Behind that pretty redhead up there."
Oh.
And his friend's like, "Oh yeah, that's Alicia. I know her. All her dish y'all." And so they sat behind us, and me and his friend sat and talked the whole time, and my husband never said a single word. Just sat there with his mouth hung open the whole time.
I love that.
And when he actually had to leave before I sang. But his mom had come to pick him up, and he had the walkway in the middle school. It kind of goes up at a level.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking up it and looking back at me and tripped over an extension cord and fell.
Such a movie. I'm telling you, this whole thing is so movie worthy.
But I knew who he was because I knew he was dating one of my friends. And I said I had a boyfriend. That's all it was. We never even spoke to each other that night. And it wasn't long. They broke up, and then he asked. We were walking down the hallway in the middle school, and I could hear a boy behind me going, "Ask her, ask her, ask her." So I slowed down.
Yes.
And just so he could catch up and give him time. And he finally asked me, and I said, "I don't know. I'll think about it." And then I went hopping down the stairs two at a time. No, I was going to say yes, but I had to, play it hard to get. One thing, I had a boyfriend. I had to take care of that. And then that was just from then on. We, getting married at an early age.
How old were you?
I turned 18 and got married 2 days after I turned 18.
Wow.
My grandmother got married on her 18th birthday, and I had a deal with her that I could last longer than her.
Oh.
I was just 2 days longer.
Wow. So what was that like? Was it,
was
dating easy?
We, of course, had our, like all others, the spats, whatever. But no matter how many times we broke up when we were dating, we would always find, it didn't matter who we talked to next or what we were doing. Within just a few days, we would be we couldn't stay apart. We just couldn't. It was like magnets. We couldn't stay apart. And then we got, get married, moved out, playing house. You feel like almost, you feel like it's almost real. I remember our first argument was actually our wedding night. On the way to our honeymoon, he asked me if I had the confirmation letter because back then we didn't have the digital stuff.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, I forgot it. And he had to turn around and go back home.
Oh no, how far
to
did
go
you
pick it up? We were in Lebanon, so he had to drive 30 minutes back. It wasn't that far. But it was what was funny is that my curfew was always 10:30. And we got to the house at 10:30. And my grandfather opened the door and he said, "No, I told you there's no return." So just shut the door. And my grandmother said, "You don't have to come home at 10:30 anymore. You're married." Just let me in the house. I had forgotten my pillow, my hairbrush, I had a whole list. And he was, "What's wrong? Why did you forget all stuff?" I said, "I don't know. I've been a little busy today." Yeah. "What have you done today?" Went to work and showed up at the church. Yeah. I had to run around doing all kinds of stuff. But anyways, it was funny. But I really think it was actually a blessing getting married early because we grew up together. Instead of growing into our own individual people and then trying to figure out how to build it together, we grew up together. Yes. And when I had come through with my brokenness, he also didn't have the best. He had a broken story as well. He was raised by his grandparents as well.
Oh, a lot in common.
So we were able to kind of mend things in our brokenness together.
Wow. That had to be bonding.
It was. It really was. And we could understand each other more. We could understand things other people couldn't ever understand.
Wow. About
each other. And I think that really helped. And he was my best friend and still is. So, it just was natural, and it's it still is natural.
God will put in our lives who we need. Yes. We don't ever know the time. Yep. It could be 8th grade, and it could be when we're 38. God puts in our lives who we need.
He does. He really does.
So was it easy for you? I mean, with all the trauma, with everything that you had been through, was Was love hard for you?
Trust was hard. I'm not going to say love was, but trust was hard. Trusting a male, especially,
I can understand.
Was hard because all I'd seen of, with my dad was the mistrust. But I had my wonderful grandfather who did give a wonderful example of love for me, which helped that in the situation. And I had other men in my life, in our church, because we went to a very small church that kind of took on, father, like some of my daddy roles. Like I would even call them, they were there for me. There was that man who actually, the preacher who married me and my husband, would actually take me to dinner sometime. He would actually had dated my mom.
Oh.
Actually had been engaged to my mom.
Wow.
Before my dad. And when he decided to be a preacher, she didn't want to wait on him, I think is how it went. I used to actually daydream like, well, what if he'd been my dad instead? But that's not how things work,
Right.
Who knows? If she'd married him, I might not have been here, who knows, God worked that out. And he has since passed away too in the last few years, but he would take me out to dinner and he would help, kind of instruct me and kind of be there, which was really great. But yeah, trust was hard. Like I said, and sometimes even like a touch would make you, would make me jump or just like set things in my memory.
The body keeps score.
That I wouldn't expect. And my husband was great about learning and knowing that it was not him, it was not personal, it was, and would know how to just step back. Yes. It's like he could read and he would just and that hasn't happened in a very long time, thank goodness. But he would know, and he would also know that I could talk to him. I can still talk to him, like if something's bothering me, triggers are happening or whatever.
Yes. Communication has to be key.
It's key, that. Very much key.
It sounds like you guys have great communication.
We do. He's great. But of course, there's also things inside that I find that I don't tell or don't open. Once again, go back to the people pleasing. Yes. Go back to the people pleasing. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to make anybody upset. I don't want to fight. I don't want to argue. I'm the least argumentative person in the world. I don't want, but my grandmother would definitely disagree with that. My aunt, she sees this, would say, yeah, whatever. Okay, then my grandmother and me argued like cats and dogs. Yes. As teenagers. Yes. As teenagers, we argued all the time. I mean, knockout, drag out arguments. Oh. I mean, it was horrible. But I mean, I put her through so much that I, wish I could go back now and tell her I'm sorry. Yeah. But what teenagers, I think, maybe don't really do things that they're regret one day. I don't know. I'm pretty blessed. My teenagers are pretty good. Maybe. But I'm sure there's things. But it got bad to the point, actually, one time as a teenager, my grandmother, it got so bad that I moved in with my dad's parents and my dad for a while. And that had to be like stabbing her, for me to do that to her. Now that I look back at that, I really regret that. It only lasted about 3 weeks. And of course, even after probably 3 days, I realized I had messed up. But pride to go back home to say, hey, I messed up, can I come back home, was not going to happen. I had to wallow in, why am I sleeping on my dad's couch, living with a man who, I literally was at the refrigerator one day and been over, just one of the, old refrigerators, been over to the refrigerator, and he walked in and said, you look so much like your mom, it's hard for me to keep my hands off of you. And I just spun around, and things like that. Like, why am I living in this situation when I could be at home in a loving, safe home, all because I didn't like a rule that was made, or just like, I don't even remember to this day now what the argument was even over, why we, I don't remember. But teenager being stupid and allowed it. And I did go back, within a couple of weeks. And,
you don't think as adults, we even do that a lot as well, because, when things aren't going a certain way, we go back to our familiar. Even if it's bad, even if it's painful, we know that environment. and we think we can handle that environment.
Yep.
And then we quickly realize after being out of that environment for a while, ooh, this ain't comfortable anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, those chains that we are getting caught up in.
Mm-hmm. They're way heavier the second go around.
Yeah. And then God sets us free, and then we go back and just put it back on, like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's not what
we
do. But
yeah. So you've been through so much. You guys got married, you had children, and like I love watching you serve and mentor in the roles that you do today. Like, so what's God done with all this pain?
Well, and that's the thing. Now, at 9, when I got saved, all I did was get saved.
Mm-hmm.
I got my salvation ticket. I got my ticket to heaven, and I'm like, okay, I'm good now.
Mm-hmm.
I still went to church until the doors open because that's what was expected of me.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, didn't mind going. That's where my family was. That's where my friends were. That's probably where I had the most freedom to see people. And all my friends going back all the way through school could tell you, if you want to be Alicia's friend, you're going to go to church with her.
What better compliment could they say?
And that's how it is. If you want to see me,
yep,
we would go to church.
I love it. Love it. Well, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
So, Alicia, we were talking about how God uses pain, turns it into purpose. So, he had a bigger purpose. It goes back to Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the mother's womb, I knew you. And he knows the plans that he has for us. So, he had some plans for you. And he protected you the whole way. What do those plans look like today?
Well, after I went from just having my ticket to heaven, just having that salvation moment, actually, it's when I started going to New Vision 15 years ago. I learned more about God and who the Holy Spirit was. Growing up in a Baptist church, I didn't know a lot about the Holy Spirit. And I just began to know God as my Father instead of as this God who was just going to strike me down if I did wrong. That was always like, I viewed him almost as a little mermaid Triton, the King Triton.
I did too.
With the spear that, if I did too wrong, he was just going to zap me with that thing. And I would just, that's how I viewed God as growing up. But when I viewed him as my Father, all the pain that my dad had caused, all the places he had failed, I realized our Heavenly Father never fails. He never leaves, and he never wanders away. He'll never quit loving me no matter what I do. He's always there no matter how far away I go, or if I mess up, he's there to pick me up, not say I'm done with you, like my earthly father. He is the perfect father. It doesn't matter how good a father we have on earth. We can have the best dad in the world. He's not going to be comparable to what God is, because there's conditions. So he's going to be human. He's going to make mistakes. God doesn't.
Yeah.
And as I learned that, and I grew in that, and I had wonderful church leadership to pour into me, our pastor's wife took me on one-on-one and poured into me with the discipleship. And then she took me to a God encounter thing in Florida. And I was set free of a lot of the things that I had struggled with, the insecurities, the pain. I forgive my dad of the things he had done to me. I let go of a lot of that stuff. And then now I'm paying that forward. I'm blessed to be a part of the ministry team. And that's where you heard my story.
Yes.
Is that our God encounter, as I cycle, repeats itself, and I get to spend one-on-one time with women in the church and just help them dig into the Word. I mean, I don't do anything, but sit there and listen to just ask them what did you get out of what you read this week, and I listen to what God's telling them, and tell them what God's telling me, and we just spend one-on-one time. Iron sharpens iron.
And you are pouring into them. Yeah.
So it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see, where God can pull. When you think, man, I'm not deserving of this. I'm not equipped for this, but He equips us. All the excuses I can use to say no one wants to hear this or no one wants to see this, but I had always said, God, what, all my life I said, why? I always asked, why? Why did I go through this? Why did I went through this? Why this pain? All my life I asked. And then God just showed me. It's so that you can share what I have done for you to help others. If there's one person that it can help, it's worth sharing. He did it. It's nothing of me. I didn't do anything, but most time run the other direction. He chased me down. He found me. He turned me around, and he still, every time I make a mistake, picks me up. And if it was, it's him.
Yeah.
And so why not? I'm just to share what he does.
Yes. A lot of people think it's easy to blame God for the traumas that we go through. If God was so good, then why did God let this happen or let that happen? Well, that was not ever God's plan for anyone to be harmed in that way. If the plan was still the plan, we'd all be in the Garden of Eden right now, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
That was not the plan. And unfortunately, we do live in a fallen world, and the enemy is roaming like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour.
Yes.
And we all love that free will, that we've got until somebody else's free will imposes on our life. And unfortunately, the enemy is out there, and he is roaming to see who he can convince to harm somebody else. And if he can cause brokenness in somebody else's life, then he knows his chances of them turning against God are greater. And so he tries to inflict that pain, but make no mistake about it, God knows. He knows everything that happens to us. He knows everything that we go through. He is seeing it all. And Romans 8:28, where he will work all things for the good. He will. It doesn't matter how bad it is. When we take that brokenness and we give it to him, he will turn it into something beautiful and usable, but we have to involve him. And you've let him be God. You've let him be Father God in your life. And now he's made you this beautiful, amazing vessel with this powerful story, and given you the courage to share it, to pour into others. Like, I already know it's impacting people. I know that, I speak to some of them. It impacts people. So don't ever stop sharing that. Yeah. If you could leave anybody who's watching today, if you could leave them with anything, what would you say?
That we're not in control of what goes on to us. What we are in control of is how we respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not responsible for what people do. We're responsible for what we do and how we react. And you can use your past. You can use the things to say, "Oh, poor me," or self-pity, or to use an excuse to do things to get away. We can't live in excuses.
Mm-hmm.
We have to allow God to work.
Mm-hmm.
And when you trust God, when you can completely trust God because He's there and He's never failing, and just let Him lead, life is so much more joyful.
Mm-hmm.
The joy that He brings. When you get rid of the pain,
Mm-hmm.
He replaces all that pain and hurt with joy. Which I'm sure it looks like joy as I'm sitting here crying all this whole
Hey, tears
time.
of joy. I am
Sorry.
all about it. Tears of joy.
You're like, yeah, joy looks like joy, right? But He does. He replaces that pain with joy.
Yes.
And it's healing.
Yes.
It's so much better on this side.
Yes.
It's hard to get through, but it's so much better on this side.
You got to feel it to heal it, don't you?
Yes. And forgiveness is key.
Oh.
To reach out just to forgive. You don't have to talk to them. It's between you and God, but to forgive them releases them.
Yes.
And that's when you can feel the joy that you get. It lets you, you're not carrying them around with you everywhere you go.
That is such a wonderful word of advice. Alicia, I want to thank you for being on the show today, sharing all of this. I hope if you're watching, listening, and you know of someone that her testimony could impact, that you will share this episode today. Follow along each week so that you are notified when we go live. And you are watching The Way to Break Free on Bold Brave TV, and we will see you next week.
This has been The Way to Break Free with your host, Angela Pedigo. The one thing Angela attributes her personal victories to is her relationship with God and her deep faith. Tune in each week and hear stories and testimonies of people in personal and professional trenches and how they overcome them with their own faith in God. The Way to Break Free has something for everyone, everywhere. Right here, Wednesdays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.